Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Hope you're all doing really well wherever you are in the world. It's amazing to have you join us. We're going to bring you a few latest stories in the AI and tech space. And we were sort of digging around. Yeah, we're just digging around for you to see what sort of grabbed us this morning. And there was nothing that sort of particularly was grabbing us. So we're going to maybe talk about a few depending how we do in terms of timings. But before we dive in, please, we do hit that like, subscribe, let us know your thoughts in the comments. We really, really appreciate your feedback, your thoughts. And, we want you to be part of the conversation as well. So, yeah, we just want to say a huge thank you as well for everyone who's subscribing at the moment. It's phenomenal. So thank you. And it does truly mean a lot to us. So let's dive straight into it, Will, because we know everyone's got precious time and they don't want to hear me gibber for too long. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a bit of a dry day. It's not a dry day in terms of news. It's just a dry day in our excitement for the news. To be honest with you, we've been digging around a little bit.
Maybe it's just a Monday, Will. Maybe it's just a Monday.
To be honest, you maybe. I mean, we are from the UK. We are miserable a lot. Mondays being a key day for being miserable. So that would explain it. We found this. Which is, well, you found this, and this isn't always an interesting story to me. I love keeping track of tiny AI models because tiny AI models, I think, is the future. I love that we're doing a lot of research into it. Other companies, obviously a lot bigger than us, like Samsung, are doing research into this, which is getting over the scaling, the limits of scaling with large language models. We've talked about this a lot on the show, but if you're joining us for the first time, we often talk about the future being on local models. Local models on your device, that means no internet required. It runs on your phone. It doesn't request any data from a server. It doesn't send any data to a server. And right now, that's a pretty hard problem to crack because large language models like ChatGPT or Anthropic's Claude or Google Gemini, they are humongous models. Absolutely massive. They need entire data centers to run, not just one computer, not even two, many hundreds of thousands of GPUs to run. But this is Samsung's tiny model. They're trying to crack the idea that we can run it on just 7 million parameters, which is tiny. I want to do some research on this because 7 million is astronomically tiny. I wonder if it is a typo, meaning 7 billion parameters, because that's quite a common model size when you see some of the open source models released. But they're talking about 7 million parameters. And they reference it down here again, 7 million. So I don't know if it's a typo or not, if they meant 7 billion. But with just 7 million parameters, they are achieving benchmark results that are beating some of the best benchmarking software and tools and tests that we have for AI right now. One of those is ArcAGI, a very common benchmark for testing, how good an intelligence is. And this model from Samsung is achieved 44.6% on ArcAGI 1 and 7.8% on ArcAGI 2. And just to let you know, just so you can get an idea of how good this is at reasoning, Google's flagship model at the moment, they're just about to release Gemini 3, but Gemini 2.4 is their current released version that only scores 4.9% on the same benchmark. And that is a model that is crazily bigger, unfathomably bigger. So it's a fascinating bit of research. And again, we only looked at this article as of 15 minutes ago, so there's a little bit more digging to look into it. But again, this further cements what I believe is going to be the future of AI. We have NVIDIA saying the same thing. Now we have a big giant like Samsung doing the same sorts of research. That models are just going to keep getting smaller. It's the way forward. Running them on device. They'll have to find other frontier labs and companies running these models will have to find other ways to commercialize. But on device, local AI, personal to us, I think is going to be the future. And research like this, it really, really makes me feel confident about that assumption.
No, absolutely. I think one thing just to stress to the audience is how important this is in the sense of if anyone's concerned about privacy and making sure that their data doesn't, leak or get hacked or get snooped upon or, anything that they're searching is looked, someone's looking over your shoulder. Anyone who cares about privacy, this is absolutely essential for the future. Now, there are obviously some hosted solutions and things like that where you can have your own servers and all the rest, but ultimately on device, like you were mentioning earlier, means nothing leaves your device, which I don't think a lot of people really fathom. I put a recent post on LinkedIn, and I was just trying to sort of I wasn't sort of talking about privacy per se, but I just tried to get people to realize that, hey, listen, have you ever wanted to use ChatGPT on the airplane and you can't? Wouldn't it be cool to be able to use AI when you're flying in between destinations, but you can't? But actually you can, and this is the point. And yeah, that might be a little niche, like gimmicky use case where, on-device AI means you can use it anywhere without internet. Amazing. But actually it goes a lot deeper, and a lot of people aren't there yet in terms of the privacy side. They're not even thinking of it. But if like me and like many people care about privacy, you need to be paying attention. And models like this are going to be absolutely critical to that. Will, quick question: do we know yet, or we might not know, whether this is going to be an open source model, or is this going to be proprietary?
There doesn't seem to be a mention of it in this article. I mean, admittedly, I have been skimming it. So if you do see it as I'm scrolling through it, as I scrolled through it, then then let me know. But I don't think that it's at the moment going to be open source. They have released their research paper, which is why obviously this article is reporting on it. They've published a paper, which is great, because based on papers, other developers, other labs, other companies can build architectures that are similar, which hopefully will be open source. I'd imagine something like Samsung is developing these local models to run on device on their phones and their electronic devices, so they run natively on the systems, just as Apple have native models running, which they haven't open source, but they've given developers access to. But no, I don't think this is going to be one that we can pull and host ourselves, though hopefully we'll take a look at the research paper, see what the architecture looks like, and see if it's something awesome that we can replicate or keep track of.
Now, listen, we're going to dive into maybe another quick story while we've got the time. And which one should we dive into? Should we talk about just briefly the robots in China? Because that's pretty mad.
I love the pivot. It's going from, realistic future tech to, should we talk about the robots in China? Yeah, let's talk about the robots in China.
I mean, we sort of laugh that, it's sci-fi, but it genuinely, when I read this article, it was just stunningly blew my mind, but equally was quite depressing in the sense of how far the West are behind the curve. So yeah, this article, I was just scrolling over the weekend actually and read it, and I thought, this is quite, interesting and quite scary. And in summary, effectively some Western executives went over to China basically to, I guess, see what they're doing. And they were shocked, in awe, scared in terms of what's happening. And I do encourage people to go and have a look for this article and have a read. There's multiple reasons. I mean, firstly, obviously, there's the challenge that these companies like Ford are going to face. They are, how shall I put it? They are, I guess, worried for their existence. And this is no exaggeration. And we're talking about Ford. We're talking about massive, and we're probably talking about BMW, we're probably talking about Mercedes, we're probably talking about all of the Western brands that we're all familiar with. And and I think this has so many more repercussions, which I may just touch on, and indeed which the article touches on. But the reality is that China, in terms of robotics, I can't remember exactly, and again, have a read the article yourself, but it was something obscene in terms of the amount of more robots that they have compared to Western manufacturers is just nuts, which means obviously efficiency, which means they can do things quicker, which that means they can, all these things. So from a competitive standpoint, they're able probably to churn, and we're seeing this in the UK, for example, with, is it BYD? We got, I can't remember. There's a number of Kaiku or Cuckoo, I can't remember what they're called, but you got these cars that are coming out, and you start seeing them on the roads, and they're incredibly well priced, and people are buying them, etc., etc. So I think it is going to be I mean, we're already hearing about some of the manufacturers in Germany really sort of struggling. So it could be a dangerous time for those industries unless they get a grip. Now, secondly, and I think this is an interesting point, is these robots will be able to churn out cars at such a rate, at such an efficiency. But from a geopolitical perspective, and then, we're talking about being able to manufacture arms. We know there's this tension between China and the West and Taiwan, and we know that wars are usually a battle of attrition. So who can fire the most rockets and who can keep going. So you just sort of imagine that if they're able to churn out this much and have this much capacity. I mean, I think this. I can't remember. I'm going to quote this wrong, but it was something like in China they've got something like 100 times more robots than I don't know. I mean,
well, let's look at this
America,
chart here.
Let alone the UK. I mean, the UK is just pathetic. It's just embarrassing. I mean, again,
let's look at this chart here.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go for it.
Here it is. This is the overall number of robots added to China in the last year compared to the UK, Germany, US, Italy. Hilariously, the UK is included in this chart, even though it barely registers as that little dark green slither in there. Like it's not even the light green slither of France. It's the dark green. Look at this exponential. Back in 2014, China was leading the way, but not by a huge margin. But look at 2024, as of literally last year. They added 295,000 robots to their workforce. For every 10,000 workers, there's 567 robots compared to just 104 in the UK. Now, obviously, people are going to criticize that, obviously, and say that's a bad thing, that we're replacing human workers. But as you said, look, we can look at some of these new companies, BYD. I've seen them on the road. I look at them and I'm like, I've never heard of that company before. And as you can see, here's the difference. 2024, 5,260 cars sold in the year. Huge multiplier as of this year. Yeah, I could see what you're saying. Britain, we're falling behind. Well,
yeah, absolutely.
We've been falling behind for a while.
Oh, mate, it's shocking. And we the government have incentives for green energy, and yet we're sort of like we're so behind the curve. It's bonkers. And the article touches on there's better ways to incentivize manufacturing and all the rest of it. But it's a real worry because I don't think people are clued into how behind the curve we are, and that the power shift is happening as we speak. So we've just got to be very thoughtful and be mindful of it. And I hope policymakers start realizing that actually they need to invest more in the future.
Yeah. Because
as much as some people might not like it, the reality is that is the future. So you either get on board or you'll be left in the going back to sort of agriculture and sort of mowing crops and with horse and donkeys.
That's my question to you, Ben, is what do you say to people that say that's a good thing that we're falling behind? Because you read that for every 10,000 workers there's nearly 600 robots. I mean, that's a lot of jobs being replaced with robots.
Well,
some people might actually come out with the argument and say the UK being behind is a good thing. It protects workers and their jobs. What do you say to people that might say something like that?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, we'll be moving into a third world country if that happens. You will get left behind in the world stage, and literally, it'll be long term. It'll be horrendous. Now, and what? How do you sustain the population if there's no jobs, if there's no industries? What, everyone's employed, but what for who? The state? How does the state pay for everybody?
Yeah.
Universal basic income? Fine, who pays for that? Well, if no one's creating wealth, no one's creating opportunities, there's no wealth. What, you're going to keep printing money and debase the currency? Okay, keep printing money, and then suddenly the money's worthless. So suddenly we'll be like Zimbabwe, going to buy a can of baked beans with a truckload of $1,000 bills. It's just the reality is the reality, and you either need to get on board and move it forward, or you'll decline. And that's unfortunately the facts. Now, in terms of job losses, I think we've said this before on the show, there's always whenever there's big change, there's always turmoil to some extent. But as humans, we'll find our way forward. One of the big reasons, just to sort of touch on, and just to finish that point, no one knows what the future is going to look like. No one knows what the future is going to be like when, there are less jobs, if not no jobs. We're going to maybe have to reinvent the economy. We're going to have to reinvent how we think about value, how we think about ourselves in terms of, who we are. A lot of people sort of identify themselves in terms of what job they do, or what what it's like when you go to a pub. You go, what do you do for a living? Oh, I do this.
We hold it quite.
Exactly. And I think that's going to have to be reassessed in time. So we're going to have to think about, reshaping possibly the whole way we live and produce value. Maybe it'll be more of we do things because we love it. We don't know the answers, and there will be challenges while that transition happens, no doubt. But for those who are aware, I would just encourage you to two things. Think about sound money. And I'm not going to go on a rant about Bitcoin, but basically buy Bitcoin. And this is financial advice, okay? I know everyone goes, don't financial advice, blah, blah, blah. But, just wake up, do your own research and figure it out quickly. Think about how you can provide value to other people, whether it's technology, whether it's whatever it is. But talking about China, going back to that point about the robots, and the article does touch on this. One of the big points it makes is China's going through a massive demographic challenge with aging population, hugely aging population, and not enough of a workforce coming through, and that has multiple issues economically, in terms of geopolitically, in terms of having enough of a workforce to man the factories and build things, and also having enough workers to pay the taxes for those retirees. I'm not sure if they have pensions and things like that. I'm not sure how it works. But ultimately, demographics for an aging population is hugely problematic for a country, hugely dangerous. And that's what we're facing in the West as well. Now, it's interesting. So one of the ways that they're dealing with this, China, is to go, right, we cocked up probably on that one-child policy. We haven't got enough babies coming through. We need to embrace the robots, because that's going to solve the population issue, I guess, and efficiencies and all the rest of it. So they're doing it for multiple reasons. It's not just we want to build more cars, or we want to be able to build them faster, or we want to build out more rockets, or whatever it is faster, and we want efficiency, and we want to take over the manufacturing base, which they already have, really. It's also for geopolitical reasons, and having an aging population, which they realise is a potentially catastrophe for their economy. So this will drive, having more robots will be a massive driver for productivity in the country. And I think the West will realise this again at some point, but a little bit behind the curve. Or politicians who just take too long to make decisions. So it's a really interesting one on many levels. Over and above the article face value, robots Ford's gonna be no more. There's a bit more to it, if that makes sense. So
I think this is the key, isn't it? This is a feature that's coming, and it's more apparent than ever before that it's coming. It's no longer sci-fi, and I think now is the time to have these conversations and have discussions about it, because before you know it, it'll be here, and we won't have made any decisions on it. We won't have discussed pros, cons, ways to deal with potential problems, and it's massive food for thought. And I love how multi-layered all of these topics are.
Yeah.
From the comedy value of saying let's talk about the Chinese robots, to actually this runs deep. This is solving
Very.
geopolitical problems. This is solving socio problems. It's it's fascinating. So much to think about.
100%, 100%, and most people probably aren't sort of tuned into it, and it's important that they are and start thinking about it. So that's it, really. Will, I think we should wrap it up. I think we've covered a couple of interesting stories.
Good summary point.
Before you go, hit like, subscribe, do all those amazing things. We really appreciate you. Let us know what you think in the comments, please, because it's a really interesting, crazy world we're living through. So love to hear what you guys got to think. For now, we'll love you and leave you. All right? Take care, guys.
Catch you in a bit.
Cheers.